The room smelled like antiseptic and quiet fear. A mother's hands shook as she stared at a man she had never met, while her daughter lay still between humming machines. One sentence, spoken softly, changed everything, not because it promised hope, but because it came from the last person anyone expected. Before we go any further, if stories about real kindness and unexpected human connection move you, take a moment to subscribe to Kindness Tales, give this video a like, and tell us your thoughts in the comments as the story unfolds. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that need them. The man stood awkwardly near the wall, his jacket worn thin at the elbows, fingers nervously twisting the strap of a faded backpack. He looked out of place in that private hospital wing, where the floors gleamed and the artwork on the walls looked like it cost more than his monthly rent. He had tried to leave twice already, but something kept pulling him back to that doorway. He was a single dad named Mark, though nobody here knew that yet. His world usually revolved around early mornings, burnt toast, mismatched socks, and the soft weight of his son falling asleep on his shoulder after long days. Life hadn't turned out the way he'd planned, but he carried it quietly, with a steady patience that came from loving one small human more than himself. Mark worked as a maintenance technician for a public elementary school in a modest suburb. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid just enough to keep the lights on and put food on the table. His hands were rough from years of fixing broken doors, leaky pipes, and playground equipment that never seemed to survive a single school year. He knew how to repair things, broken things, that mattered to him. His son, Ethan, was 8 years old and curious about everything. He asked big questions at bedtime and small ones in the grocery store aisle. A year earlier, Ethan had been hit by a car while riding his bike. He survived, but the months that followed were filled with hospital visits, physical therapy, and fear that sat heavy in Mark's chest. They spent so much time in hospitals that Mark learned the rhythm of the place, the language of machines, and the quiet bravery of parents who slept in chairs. That was how he met Lily. She was younger than Ethan, with dark curls and eyes that seemed too big for her small face. She couldn't walk on her own, and her speech came slowly, but when she smiled, it lit up the entire therapy room. Ethan noticed her first. He shared his crayons without being asked. Mark noticed her mother next, always impeccably dressed but with exhaustion etched beneath her eyes, the kind no amount of money could erase. They crossed paths week after week, a nod at first, then small talk, weather, therapy schedules, eventually conversations about fear, hope, and the strange guilt parents feel when they're exhausted but know they must stay strong. Mark didn't know who she really was. He just knew she was a mom who loved her daughter fiercely. She didn't know much about him either, just that he showed up every day, that he listened more than he spoke, and that he never complained. One afternoon, a machine malfunctioned during Lily's therapy session. The therapist called for help, but it would take time for maintenance to arrive. Lily grew frightened, her breathing uneven. Mark stepped forward without thinking. He knelt down, spoke calmly, and gently adjusted a loose connection he recognized from years of fixing similar equipment at the school. The machine hummed back to life. Lily relaxed. Her mother exhaled. That moment changed something. After that, they talked more. Mark learned Lily had been born with a rare neurological condition. Treatments were ongoing. Progress was slow. The doctors were good, but even the best medicine had limits. Her mother mentioned specialists, experimental therapies, and long flights across the country. She never mentioned cost, but Mark could hear the strain anyway. What Mark still didn't know was that Lily's mother was married to one of the wealthiest men in the country, a billionaire whose name appeared in business magazines and news headlines. He wasn't around much. Business trips, board meetings, private jets. He loved his daughter, but his way of loving involved delegating, solving problems with money and trusting experts. Mark saw love differently. Love meant being there. It meant sitting on uncomfortable chairs. It meant noticing small things, like how Lily calmed down when someone hummed softly, or how she tried harder when she felt understood rather than pushed. One evening, while waiting for Ethan to finish therapy, Mark watched Lily struggle with a simple movement. Her face tightened in frustration. Her mother encouraged her gently, but Lily shook her head, tears forming. Mark remembered Ethan's lowest moments, the anger that came from wanting his body to obey. He asked quietly if he could try something. The therapist hesitated, then nodded. Mark didn't touch Lily. He didn't instruct her. He told her a story instead, about a brave astronaut learning to move on a new planet where gravity worked differently. He asked her to imagine how slow, careful movements helped the astronaut stay safe. Lily listened. She smiled. And then, almost without realizing it, she tried again. It wasn't a miracle. Not yet, but it was progress. Word spread among the therapists. They asked Mark to sit in sometimes, just to talk, to distract, to encourage. He never charged a dime. He didn't even think of it as help. It was just something he could do. One day, Lily's mother asked Mark if he could come by their home to help with something small. A ramp issue, a door that didn't open smoothly. Mark almost said no. He didn't feel comfortable crossing that line. But she looked so hopeful, and he agreed. The house stunned him. Gates, security, long driveways, more rooms than he could count. He felt smaller with every step. Then he saw Lily's room, medical equipment mixed with stuffed animals. A child's world inside a mansion. Mark fixed the ramp in under an hour. He adjusted the door. Before leaving, he noticed a custom therapy device sitting unused in the corner. It was expensive, advanced, and poorly calibrated. He asked if he could look at it. He spent another hour making small adjustments, explaining how Lily could use it more comfortably. That night, Lily slept better than she had in weeks. From then on, Mark was invited back. Not as hired help, but as someone Lily trusted. Her father noticed the changes, the calmer sessions, the small gains. He asked who this man was. When they finally met, it was brief and polite. A handshake, a thank you, nothing more. Then came the setback. Lily's condition worsened unexpectedly. She was admitted to the hospital, the same one Mark knew too well. Specialists spoke in careful tones. Options narrowed. Even money couldn't buy certainty. Mark came to visit, unsure if he was welcome. Lily smiled when she saw him. Her mother cried quietly when she thought no one noticed. That was when Mark spoke the sentence that filled the room with silence. He explained an idea. Not a cure. Not magic. A combination of techniques he'd seen across years of therapy rooms. Mechanical adjustments and emotional support. Something unconventional. Something no one had tried this way. It would take time, patience, trust. Doctors were skeptical. Lily's father was doubtful. But Lily's mother looked at Mark like a lifeline. They agreed to try. Days turned into weeks. Mark showed up after work, before work, whenever he could. He guided gently, encouraged softly, adjusted equipment by hand when machines failed to account for a child's comfort. He never pretended to be a doctor. He was just a dad who refused to give up. Slow changes appeared. Small ones. A steadier breath. Better sleep. A tiny increase in movement. Enough to matter. One evening, after a long session, Lily did something she hadn't done before. Something that made the room go still. Her mother covered her mouth, tears streaming freely now. Her father stood frozen, unable to speak. Mark stepped back, heart pounding. He hadn't expected this. He'd only hoped. What followed wasn't a single moment, but many. Therapy improved. Doctors adjusted their outlook. Lily gained abilities everyone had been told were unlikely. Not because of money, not because of status, but because someone saw her as a child first, not a diagnosis. The billionaire father later offered Mark anything he wanted. A job, money, security. Mark thanked him but declined most of it. He accepted help with Ethan's education and agreed to consult with therapy, programs that needed a different perspective. The billionaire father later offered Mark anything he wanted. A job, money, security. Mark thanked him but declined most of it. He accepted help with Ethan's education and agreed to consult with therapy, programs that needed a different perspective. Lily's mother hugged Mark one last time in that same hospital hallway where fear once lived. She cried openly now, not from despair, but from relief and gratitude too big to hold inside. Years later, Lily would remember the man who talked to her about astronauts and never treated her like she was broken. Mark would still fix broken doors at the school, still pack lunches early in the morning, still believe that showing up mattered more than being important. Kindness doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it looks like worn elbows in a quiet room, a patient voice when everyone else is tired, or a person with nothing extra choosing to give anyway. The impact of that kindness can ripple through lives far beyond what we ever see. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs hope, and tell us in the comments about a moment when kindness changed your life. You never know whose world might be waiting for a simple human miracle.